Hi everyone, my name is Morgan Llewellyn. Thanks all for being here. I'll just give you a quick run of show of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll just jump into it. So I think first what we're going to do is just make it real for everyone. We're talking about legal ops. We're talking about generative AI. We're talking about opportunity. And so where do we see opportunity? What are people doing today? What are we hearing? Let's talk a little bit about that. And then what we're going to do is try and get ahead of things a little bit and really bring it back to why we're all here, Dreamforce, and how does Salesforce play into that? And why does Salesforce make sense for a lot of things? Leo, how does that sound? Good to you?
I think it's a great pace. And I think one of the, Morgan and I had a couple of the sessions before with some of the similar content. And I think one of the things you see early on is that I think there's a spectrum between, imagining the future that's altogether different. For those of you who had a chance to see our keynote earlier today, got a little bit of that, and those who haven't, I encourage you to go to Salesforce Plus and check it out. But that is sort of out there, and that's where we're going, and we think it's real, and there's really transformative opportunities. But there's really opportunities that are very practical, and they're here, and they're now, and they're not like crazy transformative, but they're super helpful, and they're very practical in the day-to-day. So I think the blend between those two, and being able to imagine your own journey between, where do we want to go at some potential future state, but then what are those things that we can do here and now as well. So
I think that's perfect. So let's just go into some of the use cases that we've seen, and we've even seen them today earlier. Let's talk about case resolution. Do we see firms doing case resolution today? Where do we think that there's an opportunity here?
Yep. I mean, think that when we think about this next journey of AI and interactions with, think about customers, clients in general. Maybe internal clients, it may be external clients. There is a layer of interactions. It's fairly transactional, right? And there's a layer of interaction that there's an opportunity for self-service and quick resolution, which is ultimately the best kind of service. So I think a lot about this is when we think about that first touch layer, how can you layer in some technology, some capabilities, Morgan speak to, that really allows that to sort of provide that awesome first response into a lot of people that are coming in. Maybe that's all they need, and they move on to their day and doing bigger and better things. People love to talk to legal. I know it's their favorite thing. But if not, then you can continue to escalate that internally. But
yeah. So when we talk about case resolution, I think another one that we hear, a similar term, is case deflection or some of these other things. And I think the important thing to know is this is real. And the reason it's real, and this is probably way too small for people in the back, is when you think about case resolution and using AI to help automate the resolution or provide self-service, you don't have to do everything under the sun. It's not that you're looking to do case resolution or case deflection for every single question coming in. What you can do is you can carve out the space where you can accurately and consistently and reliably answer that question in an automated way, and then have an exit strategy to be able to get you to a manual and a real-time person. And so when we're talking about case resolution, when we're talking about case deflection, things companies are already doing today, and frankly have been for the past couple of years, is they're using AI to be able to cherry pick the things that are, the 80-20. What's 80% of the effort, but they can do it reliably, consistently in an automated way, and then save themselves that 20% of, hey, this requires a little bit of a special touch. And so this is a use case that we see folks doing, and we see them doing it in a variety of different ways, on a variety of different things. But I think that becomes the challenge. As you talk about variety, doing this different ways, one company's doing it differently from another, one company's using 15 pieces of technology, I think we can see what the future looks like and where Salesforce plays. Data and document accuracy. So I can tee this one up a little bit. So this is another use case that we see. kind of throughout the legal space, legal ops. You've got information. You've got information in databases. You've got information in different systems. And I think one of the things, and if you haven't thought about it this way, documents are data. And depending on who you talk to, they might not consider a document as a piece of data. They might think of it as an unstructured document or just this blob, but it is data. And so how do you unify, how do you orchestrate all that different information across documents, across databases, across systems? How do you make sure that that information is consistent? How do you populate from, say, an unstructured document to the database itself? This is a place where we see AI really being able to up the game over the traditional technologies that are out there. Think OCR processes where I'm expecting a form with a very fixed format, and if I ever break that format, suddenly now I have to go and do a new OCR. That's not what Gen AI does, and that's not how folks are using it today. What they're doing is they're using these large language models, they're ingesting documents, they're ingesting databases. They're able to evaluate the information, extract the right information, and then in this example, compare that information and say, hey, does my database match up against this invoice? Does my database match up against this contract? Are the names the same? Are the phone numbers the same? Are the amounts the same? The dates, etc.? Because if not, in this example here, and this is a real life use case, in this example, it's going to highlight and call out to the user, hey, you just uploaded a document that listed a phone number for this person that isn't what is in the system of record. Do you want to update that, yes or no? And so here's an example of where you can use generative AI to really get harmony across all your different types of data. And this is being able to use the Salesforce platform to be able to do that.
Yeah. So quick question. I mean, we're all like super technologically advanced, but does anybody have a process that a PDF file is somehow involved into it? One person here, two in the back, everybody else. But that's, we have, Karen's in the back, she's on my team, she knows we have this. So it's an area that, it's a low calorie component of the business, but we're receiving those documents and there's a little bit of like friction that gets introduced every time you have to extract data from it, right? And like you said, and the cool thing is that I think that Morgan was speaking about the way we think about generative AI in the context of the Salesforce platform is built into the broader framework of the platform. So it's not a standalone tool that you do a thing, you engage and you do a thing, but you built that within the flow of your business, within the flow of your automation, right? So you can do a step that, like this one is a document audit of it, and then let that trigger, based on the results of it, trigger some steps of automation, auditing, fill up a field, change a field, send a flag, ping somebody back. So I think that the very practical step that gets flowed into your process, I think it's very powerful, and and it's not a transformative component as we spoke about, but it's incrementally making a difference in all our businesses.
The other thing I like about this particular use case is you're not really changing workflow, and I think that's really important. So having spent 20 years implementing AI and ML and innovation in spaces, if you make massive disruptions in workflow that don't provide massive improvements in people's lives, and that's really hard to do, no one's going to adopt it. But things like this are a very light footprint. And what they do is they help mitigate risk and they help improve the quality of the output of the work. And so this is another great use case when you're thinking about where to start your AI journey. If you haven't started it yet, think about mitigating risk, improving quality. These are often things that people can get behind that do provide value, and you can show the value, because what's absolutely fascinating is when you show the before and the after error rates. So before you implemented this technology, here's how many errors you guys had in your workflow or in your work product at every step along the way. After you implemented it, here's how many errors you have at those same steps, and all the time that you've saved by not having to go back and fix that work product, or even worse, upset clients or anything like that, or you being upset. So I really like this use case. And then here's another use case, and if there's anyone in this audience who doesn't have this use case, I apologize, because I'll make a very strong statement. I think every company we've talked to, every law firm we've talked to, anyone in the legal space we've talked to has always been interested in understanding pricing. How do I know what I should charge for this work? How do I know what I should be asked to, how much this work should cost? What is the expected time to deliver this work? All of that is really important when you're thinking about, from a corporate legal ops perspective, when budget is, the thing that you have, and you're always trying to get more with less. Having a very clear perspective on what this work should cost, what have we been charged in the past, at a line item level, what is each one of these pieces expected to cost, I think is really powerful. Now, if you could just have that at the tip of your fingers to understand, what are similar accounts, what are similar opportunities from a legal perspective, and then what has similar work costs. Being able to ask that and being able to see examples of, here's the work that we've had that is similar, here's here's how long it took to perform that work, and here's what that work cost, I think is just amazing, and something that we see a lot of folks in the need for.
Yeah. Again, if you haven't seen the keynote today, you should see it. There's a bit of capability that's been in the platform called Prompt Builder, which is now Agent Builder, and its new incarnation post Dreamforce. But the agility of creating those use cases is impressive. Dorothy was sitting here. Her team implemented a couple of use cases, and one of them, in partnership with Karen, was reviewing our invoices coming in. We inquire from the LLM, how's this invoice, what's some characteristics about the line items. Specifically now, we're tuning the prompt to look for specific tasks, type of work that we internally have automated, so that we can flag to the attorney approving the invoice that in this invoice there's some work that we don't do by hand anymore, and we should question why it's done by hand. But what impressed me in this component, not only is sort of the step approach that we're talking about, but is that it's a clicks not code, right? We're talking about something that took weeks to implement, right? It's not a DIY kind of science experiment project. It's a Salesforce admin trained up in the new skills with a 2, 3, 4 weeks of experience on it, getting 1 or 2 use cases live. So for those of you who are already Salesforce customers and have a talented admin team, this is just literally clicks and weeks away in terms of those kinds of use cases, right?
And what folks in the back might not have heard is when Leo said 2, 3, 4 weeks, Dorothy said days.
Yeah, those days.
And I think that's what we're trying to hit home is there's a number of use cases out there, and there's opportunity in everyone's firm to improve. And what we're talking about isn't moving mountains, it's exploration and starting to nibble at the edge if you haven't already done it, because people are doing these things, right? Salesforce is doing these things. Salesforce on Salesforce, right? Salesforce is doing this, and you're seeing improvements. Do you want to talk a little bit about just how it's improved your process?
Yeah, I think we've been, Morgan and I have been having these conversations for a while. The platform, for those of you who are customers, know it's been evolving fast. For those of you who are not customers, we should talk afterwards. But the incremental component to it has been impressive. Like one of the little use cases, we get inquiries from firms all the time. Karen will say probably too many. And sometimes it's hard to just figure out exactly what the question is. So one of the tiny little use cases that we have is just summarize what the ask is. And then we open the inquiry that came in, and there's a little summary of it. It is super helpful, as it turns out. We also summarize all the conversation back and forth. So if Karen was working on it, and I pick up that case later, there's a little summary of all the back and forth email that has been on that matter, right? So those are not they're kind of transformative. They are AI. There are things that we show to our GC or our leadership. They're excited to see. but they are not like, I think people have come to believe that there's, stepping into this AI journey is significant investments. I need this big team of data scientists and this big transformative project. And what we're trying to highlight here is that if you're working with the right platform, hint, Dorothy says it's days now, so projects are accelerating. It's days away from things you can do.
Well, we all can't be Dorothy. So, okay, a week. Like, we'll say it takes a week. Yeah, we'll say it's a week. But so these are a number of use cases. But I guess what you should be thinking about, and whether you're looking to do a large transformation, right, or whether you're looking to just move the ball forward on innovation, I think the important thing to think about here is we're talking about multiple different use cases. And if you think about the implementation, if you think about the experience, if you think about the technology, use case by use case by use case, what does that mean for your organization? What does that mean for the complexity of your vendor relationships, of your vendor evaluations? That is where I start getting a little bit worried. How are we going to maintain, a piece of software for case resolution? How are we going to maintain a different piece of software for data document and accuracy? How are we going to have a different platform for pricing and the analysis of how long this work should take? And that's where I think we start seeing this architecture come together for Salesforce, where Salesforce allows you to pick the innovation that is right for your organization and be able to do so at a speed that you can't find anywhere else. And so I want to throw it over to Léo to talk through this slide a little bit, but I think that's really the vision for the future.
Yeah, and so thank you.
Yeah.
That was very polite.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm super excited about this. This is my second time presenting this slide. We presented to another tech company in the Valley here, different one. But this is a little bit of how we run our, and some people refer to it intake management. There's a bit of knowledge management painted into it. There's a bit of a resolution painted into it. There are agents built into it. But it's really an end-to-end how we manage the work within our department, fundamentally. And so it all starts out on the left, right behind Morgan over here, with a nice lady who has a question, right? So it could be a question, and often what happens is in a large corporation, sometimes you don't even know who's the right person to answer that question. Like, is this a legal question? Is this a finance question? Is this a HR question? What we developed on our side is a singular intake portal that is, and we haven't launched Agentforce yet on it, but that's our next project. So there's no Agentforce for now, but apparently in days now we'll have it.
That's hours.
Hours now.
Hours.
Yeah. But what we do have is this interaction with knowledge articles. Knowledge articles is a foundation. As it turns out, Mark spoke about, a lot about AI and accuracy about AI is about RAG for those who were there. But it's really about the trusted data, right? So you want to be able to articulate your prompt against trusted data and get trusted results. And in our space, a big component of trusted data is what we call knowledge articles. So it's your how-to document set that answers questions on how do I do this, or what do I escalate for that, or what's the policy for this. So we manage within Salesforce thousands of those knowledge articles. Actually, Erica, who's somewhere over here, her team does. There she is. We proactively manage so they retain accuracy to it. And every department does that. Every department maintains their set of knowledge articles to it. So when somebody comes in and interacts with that portal, they ask a question. The first thing they're going to get is a generative answer grounded in the most likely article that answers that question. That's it's all vectorized, and Morgan can tell you all about it, but in vector land, the question and the article live in approximately the same space, so it gets identified as the right article, and then you get a generative answer based on that article. And on a good day, and for a number of the requests, that's where that journey ends, right? Somebody asked a question, they got the answer specifically to their question, they have a reference to the article if they want to read in greater length, but then often they move on. If that's not sufficient, in our case, what it does is, again, a lot about AI is about trust, right? It's about being able to have accurate results through RAG, but also to be able to show your work. And showing your work really means, like, if you give me a generative answer, where'd you get that answer, right? So you'll be able to link into that knowledge article that contains the answer to that question, and most likely a lot more, right? So typically those articles tend to be lengthier, so it takes the person some time to validate if they want to do that. But that it becomes our portal to what people refer to as intake management, right? So you're not, the reason that we chose this way is because it really changes the orders of things. You don't need to think about who you need to ask a question to. You just got to think about what's your question. The owner of that article, probably most likely the person to help you if that doesn't help you, right? So that the case management component, the Service Cloud implementation that's behind us, will route that intake request to the right team across Salesforce, that, like the team that wrote the article, right? And that, more than 9 times out of 10, that's the right routing. So often the person is asking a question and getting support without actually exactly knowing or having to be troubled through that sort of corporate navigation component. And the same is true within the legal department, right? So you may know that's a legal question, but is it an IP question, or is it an antitrust question, or is this, or is that? So all that gets resolved through that layer, and it's transparent to the user. And then from then on, we leverage Service Cloud to manage the work. So the work comes in, like I said, it gets automatically routed to a team, and now you have a whole other host of opportunities to create automation. A lot of the things that we talked about earlier are like small use cases that we incrementally built on that solution management over time to resolve, including some generative steps within the case. So that we spoke about earlier about is summarization of the inquiry. So like, what is really the question? We do, this is a bit of a generative piece, but we do, here's the articles that we think best answer that question. We do some drafting of a response. Here's a pre-drafted response that we think would answer based on the article, the question you received based on our trust and knowledge articles. If the step includes some kind of document generation or the intake of a document that might have been attached, a lot of the steps that we talked about can be brought into play. And what we're really excited about is just that as you're building it on the platform is continuing to evolve. So like I said, it may not be days, but maybe weeks. We're super excited to launch Agentforce. This is a project we're actively working on internally to launch an agent. So that first interaction will be a conversational interaction versus just ask a question, get an answer, didn't quite work out, read the article, blip. Will be much more of a fluid conversation based on those same knowledge articles from our internal stakeholders with an agent at Agentforce. And we're looking for what are those things that we used to do manually behind the scenes. Okay, now that agent has the capability. The big difference between the co-pilot thing that some Pacific Northwest company has that doesn't do things and an agent is their ability to action. Right, the action is built into the flow. So the agent, in addition to being able to answer the question, will be able to action on things. So what you want to do is, your question is, how do I create an NDA? The agent may be able to actually go ahead and create the NDA for you. So here's how you do it, and here's the NDA, right? So you see how that is transforming and really moving a lot of the effort upstream, closer to the lady and Morgan, and then really just transforming both how people resolve their own issues, and also, which is exciting for our team, and the team really appreciates it, particularly more senior attorneys. Their day-to-day is quite more interesting, right? So you really, from my perspective, it's kind of like they're working through a thicker soup, but the reality is that the questions coming to them are the more substantive, interesting, bespoke questions that they, went to school to dabbled into, and started getting paid to do that. So we're really excited how this is transforming how we do. This is just the beginning of a journey. It's one model, but we thought it was just like in the context of that, it's a piecemeal component. The ability to build that on the platform really opens up your path to increment on that. Morgan.
Yeah. Let me just say, I'll riff on something he said, and just kind of as I take a step back and I think about what the platform means in the context of innovation, and I think most importantly in the context of value, because without automation, AI struggles with value in most cases, and 95% of all cases. And so I think Salesforce platform automation makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing, though, that we see is with Gen AI, more so than any other technology over the past 2 decades that I've been around. I've been around longer than 2 decades, but professionally. I think the difference that we see with Gen AI is the importance of customization. The ability to customize to your data, the ability to customize to your workflow. That's what differentiates you from every other vendor out there, every other company, every other law firm, whatever. It's the ability to customize and leverage your own data, leverage your own information, and be able to put together a workflow better than other folks. With LLMs, that's where the world is going. And what I think the Salesforce platform gives you is the ability to focus on the customization and the differentiation that you as a firm bring by your workflow, by having your information in a better place than a competitor, as opposed to being able to develop an LLM. The LLM isn't necessarily the differentiator. What Salesforce allows you to do is make your organization and the way you do things the true differentiator. And I think that's what's so exciting about the AI. That's what's so exciting about the LLM, is it actually puts the ball back in your court and allows you to be better than the competitor because you do things better. Not that you build a better LLM, but you've got a better business. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, and to make this really tangible, the technology is not the hard part. I mean, we're talking about LLM and interactions and accuracy and so forth, but turns out it's not. All that work has been done for you, and through clicks, not code, you can resolve that. To be honest, a lot of the challenge that we have here, I'm looking at Erica again, is really around knowledge, right? So what are the teams that have been able to maintain or now are in the journey of doing better at it, maintaining what's sort of intrinsic knowledge within the team in a well-documented way, because that's what powers technology, right? So the work becomes, in a lot of ways, is sort of back in your core in terms of like your own discipline, you understanding your own business. Yeah, what is the procedure? What do we actually do in it? We try to write it down, and then there's 3 people and they all disagree as to like, okay, well, you all have three different understandings of what we should be doing. What should it be, right? So we spend a lot of time on that. But it's fascinating how much time. This is not a big technology problem, right? The platform allows you to just get this up and running, and it becomes really an opportunity to unlock value from the business through better procedures and understanding.